what I'm going to be talking about today is, first thing, I'm dressed up going to an interview, so wish me luck from the future, I guess. Hopefully it works out. But anyway, so what I'm going to be talking about today is childhood obesity, and I know I promised it earlier to Lindsay, I think. Yeah, and so I'm sorry about going late on this, but I actually kind of have a good reason, because I run a debate club on campus, and with that debate club, now just yesterday we went over the topic of obesity. It kind of got general, well, first thing, I want to have the focus to be childhood obesity, because I'm kind of one of the younger people in the world, how it is. So I guess that's more relevant to me, and maybe one of the other USHowItIS could do adult obesity, because they are adults, and they would be able to know amongst their peers. But also with that, I'm kind of hesitant about this topic, because with a lot of the styles or just like topics that I've made videos about, I kind of look at them through a lot of like introspection and just like observing others, and with this one it's not completely appropriate, because I for the other ones I try to be as not biased as possible, and I'm still going to be trying to do that with this one, but there's just inherent bias with this topic, because no one really, there's no clear answer, and everyone's suggesting different things. So I'll try to do my best. Hopefully it paints a good picture of the U.S. Or well, it obviously isn't going to paint a good picture, but helps show the roots of the problem and where we're at. But anyway, so and I might, since I know driving video is kind of boring, I might put some video over it, so I'll have text to explain what that is if I do any of that. One of the things, okay, well, let's go over like the many debates that went down in my club, and the way we did it was through something that we call a thought talk, which is pretty much I get everyone in a circle, and I just pick hands and they go at it, so it kind of goes like a conversation. So you really get a feel at what people think on the matter. And there were several points in it, and one of the and sorry if I pause, because I'm actually just getting I'm heading home for this interview. It's pretty far away. I gotta get on the highway. I need to be. Okay, so one of the arguments that one of my group members had was, and I really think it is a valid argument, is that I wouldn't have any business in how someone else goes about their weight, or any just kind of control in that aspect, and I completely agree with that, and let me start off with just pointing out the obvious, that I'm a stick. I'm a very, very skinny individual. I played soccer from when I was 4 till 12th grade, and I did cross country too. And so yeah, I work to get the build that I have, and so that's what I attribute it to. But thing about that argument, when you say it doesn't affect, or where it's like a point of personal privilege, is that's true until the point where that there's like Medicare and Medicaid and other forms of just medical billing and insurance, where someone else's actions does affect the bill of my actions. And if we go into the future and we do get more universalized healthcare or whatever, that'd be even more so. I bring that up because I think in other places that would be maybe more of an odd argument, but it's very justified, and I don't have any problems with anyone that's fat or like a big guy or whatever. It's just there are some people in America that are just so morbidly obese that they're affecting their ability to walk, and there's an example, because I used to work at Kroger, and there would be there's the mobility scooters, and there would be elderly people who were crippled and needed those scooters, but they would be taken by these really fat people that just have no shame about it, and I found that just horrible. But in the all other cases, when someone else's lifestyle doesn't affect someone else's lifestyle, I'm normally fine with it. But anyway, so that's how I went against his argument. But he didn't feel too okay about that. What was another thing? There's a lot of people talking about the science of the matter, where there is tendencies like genetically towards obesity, and there's actually I can't even tell you how many times I've heard people who've had like a thyroid issue or something that has them a tendency to have more weight than other people, and I agree with that as well. It's just I don't think that excuses you or people from just like the vapidly obese rates in America, and because like there's the excuse that is I've heard often, where people say they've dieted and exercised and nothing's worked, and that it's impossible and it's beyond them. And I just, like, having been in cross country, like, there's no way that you could be morbidly obese and be in cross country. There's just physically, like, there are things you can do to avoid that situation, and I think that can be avoided through that. But again, for 200, 300 pound people, whatever. It's just the people that are beyond that. It gets excessive. But anyway, so the topic of this video is on childhood obesity, specifically, and actually my club didn't get too far into that, so I'll just kind of go on my own with that. There are a variety of reasons for that. One being, well, the common punching bag for America is the school system, and people will blame the school system for their problems. And actually, the guy that did the kind of personal privilege argument earlier, he made the argument that why should we even expect them to do anything? It's everyone should. It's just very individualist argument. And yes, that's also to it. But or like why the school should get involved. But so I'll address the schools singularly first. There is actually a very big problem with school lunches in particular, and this is one that of the group of our discussion, this is pretty much the only thing we could agree on singularly. So I think. If you were going to take anything from this video, then you can take this from the video. It's that our school lunches just have way too much processed food in it, and it's not really even food. The way I'm gonna try to show pictures and stuff of it, but the way I think it's come to the point of how it is right now is that the way school lunches are determined is they'll be determined by lawmakers or they'll appoint committees and stuff, and how do you administer committees or in a broad-based manner? You would look at things like calorie intake or sodium or whatever, and a lot that goes into this is the price that our schools don't get a huge amount of funding, and then there's a lot of people that are on either reduced pay or free lunches, especially inner city kids. They'll be half the school. Actually, I think I've heard of more in some inner city places that'll all be on free lunches. But often it's kids paying for their lunch though, so they're picking whatever they want. But what I'm thinking probably goes into this is that when you have certain just numbers that are basing children's diets, there's an incentive to just have the lowest number for certain topics or certain things, and I think with that incentive system, you get these really cheap processed goods that they don't necessarily have a high amount of anything bad or anything that's more bad than other things. It's just that they don't have anything good with them at all, and so when a kid or when I was in high school, when I would go to a cafeteria, there'd be very limited choices, and they're pretty much all bad choices, and there's nothing that's really filling. Well, I guess there's fattening things, but it's just I think that there's not the school system sacrifices full meals for these numbers. And if you had full meals, yes, children could get fatter off of them, but they would be more nutritious, and I think that would be better. And if you had these more nutritious meals, then if they had proper exercise, it wouldn't be a big deal, and they would have proper nutrition in their diets. When they don't, and I'm not even a good example. I have a terrible diet now, and I had a terrible diet in school. I had pizza Wednesdays and Fridays, every Wednesday and Friday from 1st grade until 12th grade. I'm not joking. I only didn't do that, I think maybe 2 or 3 times, or no, it was probably 4 or 5, but still, like I could count the amount of times where I didn't do that regiment, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's a bad thing, and that I'm not a great example there, because there are some people like a different person in my club brought up this point, that with cross country, that's a student activity, and that's one thing that we need to encourage kids to get more into. He also used himself as an example of, like, he was in cross country and he lost 50 pounds, but then he stopped doing cross country, and then he gained it all back. Especially since the recession, the cost of student organizations, especially sports organizations, has skyrocketed. I think for the soccer team, I think it would be like $600 at least to join the team in high school. And I think football was more. I think it was like 1,000 or something. Actually, maybe soccer was that too, because they got bumped up like $400 or something. Ridiculous, because our school system failed the levy, and what was it levied? It's just like a county vote, or I guess it would just be our school district vote, and so they voted on a budget, and the budget failed 5 times in a row, so something had to be cut. So that's and I think I need to make a whole different episode about school systems and like where you should move. But the quality of public education will depend upon where you live, because of the local and county taxes that go into it. Because there's different layers of taxes, and each layer has some kind of input into the system. It's just like once you get to the lower layers, there's a lot of differentiation in them, and you'll see more in the higher levels. They'll have funding to build new school buildings, but it won't be for the salaries or school lunches. Well, I guess kind of school lunches, but so yeah, and with that high percentage, this club member I'm talking about, he mentioned that in inner city, and then I keep mentioning inner city because that's where the highest rates of obesity are. It's normally concentrated in minority populations that are in inner cities because of, well, there was the history of like white flight moving to the suburbs, and but I guess there's now re-entry into it, but it's haphazard and happening in differently in different places in America, and that's another thing I could go in on itself, because if you were going to like look at like demographics as a whole, like 50 years ago, the fattest U.S. state is significantly lighter than the lightest U.S. state now. So don't get me wrong for picking on like the inner city communities or anything. There's the wider movement, I guess, but one group in particular, African Americans in the U.S. They are I think it's like 10% higher on the obesity rates or something like that, and one of the things that is attributable to that, like other than just incomes, which is lower, and as you get lower, people they'll spend less on healthier goods for them. But in these inner city areas, there's a term called food deserts, where they might not have a full grocery store within a couple miles of them, and for a lot of these people, they don't have cars, or if they do, they might be sharing someone else, or it's expensive or something. So the trips to the grocery store might be something different, because there'll be more these smaller marts, like pretty much gas stations with the food. Well, they'll have more than that, but they'll just have again with the processed goods, and I kind of have another theory about this, like why there's a difference between, or like such a gap between us and Europeans, though Europeans are getting fatter too, so this isn't totally true, and there's also just the background of just the increasingly sedentary lifestyles, and I think that's probably what's happening in Europe as well, but it's just the comparable prices of like vegetables to these other goods, and the group member who I said was in cross country, and was talking about the inner city kids and stuff. Oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, he mentioned the Farm Bill. With his point with the Farm Bill, which is it's not really about farms. It's just a large bill that's passed by Congress every year about just food products in America, and it's there's a huge amount of subsidies that go through, and it's usually a rubber stamp for whatever gets on there. But it is a large bill that if you got to know anything about it, that's one of the most important things. But his point was that through the Farm Bill is where you get food subsidies for schools, and he said it was kind of underfunded through there. But I had a different point with the Farm Bill, which I'm not really too sure about federal food subsidy, but I'll take his word for it. With the Farm Bill, there is inaccuracies in the market, because and you'll see a lot of countries have a problem with our subsidy system, because the U.S. will subsidize corn heavily, and pretty much what that is they'll buy corn and just well, sometimes especially for like famines or stuff, there's a history of those, of just like buying farms or corn and then letting it to waste, or paying farmers to not farm on fields or something like that. But there's just several forms of subsidy to our corn that allows it to be below market prices, and so we wreck economies, or our agricultural economies abroad with this kind of, and with that we also have like just unnaturally cheaper animals, because they'll from this corn they'll have feed from that, and a lot of the product, at least 75%. I don't know the real number, but at least 75% of these processed goods have some kind of corn in it, and so they're extremely cheap compared to just vegetables, which are normal market prices. And if you look at like markets in Europe, everything's more expensive, but it's just they're more comparably expensive. And so I guess if you can choose. That's my theory around it, that there would be less of a difference between the two choices. And okay, so getting beyond the school system, I think that there's kind of a vicious cycle happening in America, where I don't really blame schools. Like there is the lunch issue, but if parents really had a problem with that, they could just pack their lunch for their kids, because that's always an option. But going into that, even if they packed the lunch, it would probably be bad. But anyway, so the vicious cycle is that you have increasingly fatter parents being role models for increasingly fatter children, and I mentioned the parents because if you are a parent, you are the role model, and that goes beyond just your social actions and legal actions to others and how you act in society. It also goes in how you carry yourself and how you act upon your health. And I always think it's funny when I see on the news someone who is obese themselves criticizing the school for their child's obesity, because it's just I think a lot of it is people in America are unwilling to like own up to their own devices. Like they're unwilling to take, or like, I don't know a word for it, self-actualize, or I had a good word for it earlier. Anyway, I love America to death. Like I wouldn't move. You couldn't pay me to move. I don't know if I even want to leave Ohio, to be honest. But the one problem with Americans is that they won't, like, if there's a problem that they've caused themselves, they won't, like, admit that they are the cause of that problem. Like, I don't know. What was I gonna say? Self-agency. Yes. Oh, I remember what it was. It was Americans won't take self-agency in how they live their lives, and that everything's someone else's fault. And that's one thing that just it just messes with me. And so, like, if this ever is gonna get fixed, I brought up a different argument, which my club members thought was interesting, but I do see the attributes to it. So I'm taking an underground economics class right now, and there's one of the main messages of my teacher is that to go after these underground markets, you have to go against the demand and not the supply. And there was like different attributes where it was you would have like it was like $10 towards going against people trying to import drugs against the border. Would be just as valuable as $1 spent trying to lower the demand in the U.S. or something along the lines, like through education or something like that. And that's what I think would be a way that Americans should have dreamily go about this is. Address like through education that this is, well, first thing we have to we kind of acknowledge it a little bit that it's a societal problem that we need to address, but or just like through, I don't know, our school systems or something. Or like that's a start, but it really needs to go beyond that. It really should be individuals, and now I'm caught in the trap of blaming the school systems again. So it really is a vicious cycle. So yeah, it's just it's a mess. If anyone has any questions about this, feel free to ask. I don't really get too many comments on my YouTube thing, but I'm always willing to answer questions. And I know I ramble. And you can also suggest new topics to talk about. And that's WorldHowItIS.